Good morning. It's now time to convene the meeting of the Bullock County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to welcome visitors and the media. I'd also like to remind everybody to turn off or put your cell phones and other devices on vibrate so that they don't disturb us while we conduct people's business here. Commissioner Timmy Rushing, will you give us the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would. Mr. Chairman, before I do that, I'd like to mention something to the people. This day in '01, Wilbur Berry and Bill Black were shot, and Wilbur Berry died from his injuries in that. They are deputy sheriff. They were deputy sheriffs. Bill Black is still, he's chief deputy, and was shot by a fellow named Early Lanier. And Howard D. Smith shot and killed the perpetrator. And at 10 o'clock, they'll have a memorial service for Wilbur Berry and his family at the sheriff's office. They'll close the lobby and they'll have something there at 10 o'clock if anybody would like to attend. I was asked to mention that because the family will be there. And so I just wanted to mention that before the invocation. Now, if you'd bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we thank you for this day and thank you for all your many blessings. We thank you for the rain that we have got, Lord, and just please continue to send it to us as needed. Lord, I'd like to ask you to be with all of our armed forces and public servants and public safety and just all the ones that make this world go around and make it a better place, Lord. Lord, I'd like to ask you to be with the Wilbur Berry family. I know it's been 25 years ago, but I know it's fresh on their minds just like it was yesterday. I'd like to ask you to be with this commission and help us make the best decisions for this county. And most of all, let them be pleasing to you. These things I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Mincy White, will you call the roll of commissioners, please?
All right. I, Venus Mitzi White, present as clerk of the Board of Commissioners of Bullock County, hereby call the roll for those on the governing body. All those present shall answer by saying aye. Chairman David Bennett.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Anthony Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray Mosley.
Aye.
Commissioner Toby Connor.
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Newkirk. Commissioner Timmy Rushing.
Aye.
And Commissioner Ray Davis.
Aye.
I have determined that we have all members of the Board of Commissioners present. Therefore, we have a quorum to conduct business for the good of the citizens of Bullock County. I now yield the floor back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. Before I entertain a motion to approve the general agenda, do we have any discussion or modification desired by the county manager or the board? Any other discussion about this agenda before we move forward? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion on this agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Connor and a second from Mr. Mosley. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so moving right into our presentations for the day, I'm going to turn the floor over to our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Christy King, and we're going to talk about our annual audit.
Well, good morning. We have our auditor, Mr. Richard Deal, here. He is going to kind of go through our financial report. I attached it to your agenda packet so that y'all have it very easily accessible. It is also available on our website. If you go to the Bullock County website, look through departments, find finance, there's a financial reports page, and all of our audits for the last, I don't even remember how many years it goes back, are available on our website. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Deal and let him kind of go through the results of this is last year's audit, so fiscal year ending June 30, 2025.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I just want to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing our firm, Lanier Deal and Deal, to serve as your auditors again this past year, and wanted to thank Christy and Brianna Hayden and the rest of the finance staff for providing the information we needed for the audit. They do a great job. You have a great finance department. You do have the financials, I think, in your agenda packet. There's a lot of information in here, but I'm just going to kind of point out a few things. Of course, the auditor's opinion, it was unmodified opinion, so no qualifications or findings. If you'll turn to page 36, and before, the actual financial statement starting on page 20 through 34 is the management discussion and analysis that Christy prepares. It's a good summary of the financial condition for the year ended June 30, 25. So a lot of good information there. Page 36 is the statement of net position. And this is for the government-wide financials. So you have the first two columns there, the governmental activities, which is the general fund, and all the, special revenue funds, capital project funds in total. The second column is the business type activities, which is the aquatic center and the broadband fund primarily. You do have two component units that are included in your audit that are audited by other auditors. That's the Bryan County Board of Health and the Development Authority of Bullock County. But there on page 36, you can see the first two line items are cash and investments, about $48.5 million in cash and $14.5 million in investments. But most of that is held in restricted funds like the SPLOST funds and special revenue funds. Your total assets, you see on down for the primary government was $182.3 million. Your total assets increased about 1.9 million, about a 1% increase in your total assets. Of course, your largest assets are, of course, your capital assets. Capital assets net of depreciation, which includes all the equipment, all the infrastructure, roads and so forth. Net of depreciation was 108.6 million. You had a lot of capital additions during the year, so net capital assets increased about 11.8 million or 12%. Your liabilities on down, your total liabilities, 30.7 million. Net position, then at the bottom, would be kind of like an equity in a business. Your net assets in total were 153.2 million. It was increase in total net position on the government-wide level, about 4.7 million, or about 3.3% increase. But as you see, of that net position, almost 100 million out of the 153 million is invested in capital assets, net of related debt, of course, which is not spendable. That's your money that's invested in capital assets. Your unrestricted net position, you see, was only like 12.9 million of that total. That's unrestricted, not restricted for certain purposes. If you'll turn to page, this is the statement of net activities. Again, this is on the government-wide basis, includes all the funds of the county, includes depreciation on capital assets. So you'll see the list of primary functions of government, like public safety, public works, general government, and so forth. And then that first column of numbers is your expenses for providing that function of government, which includes depreciation on capital assets. The next three columns are program revenues, revenues that can be directly associated with providing that function of government. And then that fifth column gives your net costs of providing that function after, revenues that you're able to generate related to it. And so that's why down below you have to have general revenues like your property taxes, sales tax, insurance premium tax, so forth. But you can see your total expenses, including depreciation, were 127.4 million. That was about 11.6 million, or 10% increase. Of course, a lot of that related to the expenses related to the hurricane. Your total revenues for the governmental activities in those next three columns, and the general revenues below for the governmental activities. Total revenue was 132.9 million, which was about a 2.5 million or 2% increase in your total revenue. And so you can see down at the bottom, the change in net position for governmental activities was an increase of 4,660,000, and then the business type activities had a small increase of 72,000. Turn the page or flip over to page 40. I'm sorry, page 38. 38 is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. The first column is the primary operating fund for the county, the general fund. And you can see the general fund had cash and investments of about 17.8 million at June 30, 25. It was about 22.5 million the prior year, so about a about $4.7 million decrease in cash and investments for the fiscal year 25. You see the total assets for the general fund, you see almost 24 million, which was about a 3.8 million or 14% decrease in total assets for the general fund. And the fund balance at the end of the year, you'll see it was 20.4 million. And that was about a 3 million or 13% decrease, primarily again, related to expenses related to the hurricane, and some of that money came in, the net has come in this fiscal year as additional reimbursements from FEMA. So hopefully that would build back up your general fund balance. And you can see the next two columns, major funds were the 2019 SPLOST that had 12.3 million in fund balance, and the T-SPLOST, you can see it had about 24.3 million in fund balance. And then that fourth column is all the non-major funds totaled together, and there's combining schedules in the back after the notes to the financial statements that list all those funds to get that total. If you'll flip to page 40, that's the statement of revenues and expenditures for the governmental funds. Again, the first column being the general fund. General fund had total revenues of 73.7 million, which was about 8.5 million or 13% increase, which was primarily, there was about 2.2 million increase in taxes. That's all taxes, not just property taxes. That's sales tax, insurance premium taxes, and everything. And you had a 5.7 million increase in intergovernmental revenue. And most of the increase in the revenue was you had about 8.8 million in FEMA money come in related to the hurricanes, primarily the Hurricane Helene. And then your total expenditures there in that first column, you can see for the general fund was 77.5 million, about an 18 million or 30% increase. Again, most of that increase was in public safety and in the sanitation. 11.4 million related to Hurricane Helene, cleanup and repairs. And you see your net decrease in fund balance for the general fund of 3,045,000 for the year. And with again the ending 20.4 million. You had unassigned fund balance of about 17.8 million, which is just a little below, it's 24.7%, just below 25%, which is a good rule of thumb. That you want to maintain your general fund balance. You want about 25% in reserves, about a fourth of your year's annual expenditures. And, hopefully this year will end up that you've added back to that reserve. You can see that the 2019 SPLOST, the third column, it took in 20 million in SPLOST revenue and about 776,000 in investment income. And you can see that the SPLOST funds spent about 24.4 million during the year on SPLOST projects. The T-SPLOST took in about 18.2 million in T-SPLOST funds, and then you had another 5.1 in intergovernmental revenue, like DOT contracts, and you had about 1.2 million in investment earnings, and you spent 25.3 million out of the T-SPLOST fund on road projects. If you turn to page 42 through 44 is the budget versus actual for the general fund. With the amended budget, the revenue was about 1.4 million over budget, and your expenditures on page 44, total expenditures were about 2 million under budget for the, you know, per the amended budget. So you had budgeted use of fund balance of about 6.8 million, and you only end up using 3 million. So you end up having a favorable variance for the year of about 3.7 million. Page 45 through 47 is the proprietary funds. You have two enterprise funds, the Aquatic Center and the Radio System Fund, and then your internal service funds. Just to point out, on page 46, the first column is Aquatic Center, and then the second column, the radio system. You can see there on page 46 that they had an operating loss of $457,000 for the Aquatic Center and $250,000 for the radio system fund. But that is after depreciation too on capital assets. If you added back depreciation, it would be positive. But of course, you're required to record depreciation on the capital assets. Then notes to the financial statements start on page 50. I'm not going to go through and do that, but that gives you a lot more detail on accounting policies and a lot of information on details of capital assets and long-term debt and so forth. Then on page 95, starting with page 95, 95 to 100 is the combining financials for, these are the special revenue funds, and you have a lot of special revenue funds. And those totals come forward to the front, you know, as the totals for the non-major funds. And then on page 125 and 126 is the statement of fiduciary net position, and then the statement of changes in fiduciary net position. This is for the custodial funds, which are primarily the constitutional officer funds. And then there's other required information. And then the county does an annual comprehensive financial report, so you provide statistical information starting on page, the section starts on 132, and the numbers, the tables start on page 134, and there's several pages of that, and that gives you 10 years of trend information on the county's financials. And then on page 158 is a required report on internal control over financial reporting and other matters, and we didn't have any significant deficiencies or findings in internal control. And then starting on page 160 and is what's called the single audit section. Since you receive so much in federal funds, you're required to have what's called a single audit, where we have to test for compliance related to the receipt of federal funds. And you can see on 161 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and you received 10.7 million in federal awards. Again, most of that, as you can see, was disaster grants from FEMA, about 8.8 million. And then we're required to do a report on compliance for each major federal program and in compliance, and we didn't have any findings related to the federal grants. So again, there's a lot of information here. I tried to keep it as brief as I could, but I'd be glad to answer any questions. I don't know if Christie has anything she wants to add to point out. But,
Y'all got any questions? I just have one. I want to go back to something that you said in the beginning. Actually, I have a couple questions, but when you opened up your presentation, you mentioned something about a fully qualified audit and
Unmodified, yeah.
Unmodified without qualifications. Can you explain what that means?
Right, you were required to audit, all the funds of the county. And then, in unmodified means, that, under auditing standards, that they, everything was, according to general accepted county principles for governmental funds. And, I mean, if a fund or parts of the financial statements were not prepared properly under governmental county principles, we would have to modify the report. So it's called unmodified, or basically a clean opinion.
And with the qualifications, if you had to modify it, you would have to state in the
That's
qualifications.
right. It would be within
Okay.
there would be separate paragraphs within the.
So
independent
bottom
auditor.
line up front was you didn't find anything funny with
Right,
the
right.
books.
That's right.
Now, by state law, we have to do an audit every year,
That's correct.
okay? How do we go about picking you as our auditor? We don't just go and say, well, Mr. Deal's down the road and, we can get to him easy, or,
Right.
Christie drinks beer with him on the weekends or anything like that. So what do you have to do to be qualified to audit government
Right.
books?
CPAs that do governmental audits, you're required to, not many firms do governmental auditing anymore because of all the requirements. But you have to have 40 hours a year in auditing, continuing education, most of it related to government, audits. But yeah, you normally, the Board of Commissioners, select, the CPA firm based on qualifications and price, so.
And those qualifications are set by the state, correct?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir, by the Georgia State Board of Accountancy and the Georgia Department of Audits. And, we audit several cities and counties within the area. I mean, Bullitt County does a great job with their finance department. We run into situations, especially with some of the smaller cities. It's a challenge with their, with their finance department. But the county and the city of Statesboro are fortunate, to have good finance departments. And you need it with governments this size.
Any other questions or comments?
And thank you all for your concern, for the county finances and,
Thank you, Mr. Deal, for coming out today.
yes, sir.
So next up, I believe we got Ms. Rose Bonner and Ms. Crystal Dawson, our Assistant County Manager, are going to come up and they're going to talk about some trashy stuff. And while I have this on my mind, Dal, I'm going to ask that, that report is about 300 pages long. Could you put a link out to it along with these two presentations that we're going to get today from these ladies and then from Jolene, so that folks can review those at their leisure?
Awesome. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Crystal Dawson, the Assistant County Manager. I'm joined this morning by,
Rose Bonner, I am the interim solid waste director.
and we're here to talk about the solid waste transition plan because there are a lot of current issues. The centers are not manned. They are open 24/7, which means they are completely unchecked. This is leading to a lot of abuse. You can just drive through and you can see that there's a lot of abuse. Financially, it's unpredictable staffing and overtime. Rose could tell you all about how staff are having to work unpredictable hours, just trying to keep up, and it's still not at a level that we're happy with. We have scavengers freely that are going through, and that's very unsafe for everybody. Dumping on the ground. You'll hear of some of the stations that are closer to our borders that other counties are coming through and using them, so we are paying for other people to come through and use our centers. And then just a lot of illegal dumping, which leads to an increased amount of cost for our tipping fees. So the solution that was brought up was to staff the centers, which is something I believe the county had done previously, and to lock them up at night so that we can check to see who is coming through, make sure that they are residents. We will set days and hours of operation. We are looking to start January 4th. Gives us enough lead time to get the centers in place and ready, make sure that the shacks are usable, and that we can give people enough lead time working with Mr. Kennedy to make sure that people understand what changes are happening. The hours we're proposing are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. For each center, it'll be a rotating schedule, which we'll go over in a little bit. We will be checking residency, again, to make sure that we are serving the residents of our community. I mentioned educating, and that we'll be setting limits on what we can take. Right now, again, people are just dumping everything, is leading to some unsafe situations where we have fires in containers. So making sure that we have set limits and only accepting what we want to be accepting into our containers. Mr. Pope wanted me to call out that in like a month or so, you will be hearing about the solid waste management plan, and the recommendations we are making do follow that plan that you'll be voting on next month. So speaking about what will be acceptable and not acceptable, household trash, limbs that are smaller, metal appliances, and then limiting the number of passenger tires. We had discussed potentially not accepting tires, period, and instead doing like a large amnesty program a few times a year. Our worry, though, is that people are just going to find somewhere else to throw them on the side of the road. So again, just checking to make sure what they're bringing in, that they're not on rims, limiting how many there are, so we don't have businesses that are bringing 30, 40 tires at a time like they are now. Not accepting tires on rim, not accepting hazardous waste, vehicle batteries, paint, used motor oil, no pesticides. These are things that all need to be disposed of, not in a general waste site. So when people come to the centers, what they'll be seeing is they'll be asked to show proof of their residency. It usually is as simple as look onto their tag on their vehicle to see if it says Bullitt County, but since not every vehicle has that, we are gonna check licenses for the first time and then do like a sticker on the window so that you don't have to actually check in every single time. The person who's manning it can see, oh, if you got the sticker, you're good. Go ahead and pull through and here's where you go. Obviously, we have people like college students who reside here part-time, so there will be a way or a process to get like a permit through the office that says, yep, I am a resident, even though my license or my tag says otherwise. So once you're in the center, like I said, you'll have a person there that can say, hey, here's where you bring your metal, here's where you bring your small limbs. That will help to keep the centers orderly instead of looking so dangerous. These are the centers that we are proposing to close. Starting in the next 8 to 12 weeks is kind of what we're thinking. We will slowly be closing them one at a time with the current staffing that we have, which again, we have unpredictable time as it is now. So we will make it kind of a long process so that starting by January, these centers will be cleared out. The reason I'm proposing that we actually take the fencing out and everything is because if people see what was once a site that still has fencing, I do believe that they will just chunk their trash back over the fence, thinking it's still a site, and we'll have to go back through and clean it up. Whereas if we pull them, they're not there anymore. The last three, Rocky Ford, Highway 80, and Lake Collins, those are actually just cans. They're not fenced anyway, so those will be probably the first three. They're the easiest to pull and get done. These are based on, Ms. Rose and I and other people helped, we looked at coverage. So 5 mile, what you can see and what everyone else will see is 5 mile drive radius. So total coverage of the county, which centers we can expand on, and I don't mean physically buy more land and expand, but which ones can we move the containers around, add more containers, location, and then usage, which ones are most used. The big exception to this one is Olney, which is one of the busiest ones, but it is probably the most abused one, whereas people from other counties are coming in very frequently and using it. And it is so far down that it's half of that 5 mile radius is in another county. So that's the one exception, which is you will on the map see a little bit of a hole at the bottom there. These are the ones that we are keeping open, and Mr. Rose went through and found which ones were expandable, again, meaning we can add more containers to them. This is the map you're looking at in front of you that shows all the centers that are left open with that 5 mile drive radius. If you look closely, some of their roads are colored and it's not shaded, so you do have to actually look to see the gaps aren't quite as big as they do appear on this, but this does show if all 10 or 12 were open on the same day, which is not what we're proposing because that's fairly cost prohibitive unless you want to fund it. But that's all the centers that are left open. And then we do have two options for how we will rotate the schedule around. The first one called spread coverage. So this is more, I'll fast forward to the map. You can see, depending on where you are in the county, ideally you would have somewhere you can go on any given day of the week. So this would be on a Monday, and this would be on a Tuesday. So rotating where they're at. The second option is cluster coverage, which is kind of the opposite, whereas if you are in the south, you probably have somewhere to go, and the next day, if you're in the north, you have somewhere to go. And this shows the two, all four of them kind of side by side, just Monday and Tuesday. Mr. Pope was very kind and did these maps for us. We didn't want to ask him to make 10 maps, so we did just do Monday and Tuesday, but you can reflect back on the schedules to see what it would look like. I'm going to be asking for your input on which of these you would prefer us to do, whether we cluster or spread them. You can cut it either way. You can make an argument for either of them. The cost to repair the centers, we're estimating that the staff adjustments, we're estimating it to be between $15,000 and $20,000 increase for 6 months. This includes eliminating positions in solid waste and adding positions to the CI. We are hosting the people who are manning the stations in the CI. One of Ms. Rose's concerns with manning the stations is that we had previously used what I have heard, I'm not saying this, a lot of like old men were out there manning the stations. And what we had brought up is people are not always kind when they're told no, and it seems to be getting worse and worse. So we wanted a little bit more of an authority of someone out there that can say, no, you cannot bring that whole pecan tree in here. So we were asking the CI to come in, so they have a little bit of a badge on their shirt. So the 15 to 20,000 increase for the staff adjustments is, again, eliminating some positions from solid waste and pushing them over to CI, and that's in that 6 months, January to whatever 6 months after January is, June. The cost of repairs to the center is 30 to 40. Again, we talked about how some of the shacks were in pretty dire condition. Mr. Hop went out and looked at them, gave us an estimate. This does not include Pine Inn, because Pine Inn is its own separate project right now, so I don't want to be clear that that's, when we come back and ask for money for Pine Inn for a separate project, that is not inclusive of this. I also want to make sure that it's not our goal to lay anyone off, okay? So I know we said we're eliminating positions in solid waste. It's our goal to find somewhere else, if they choose or want to stay with the county, to find somewhere else for them to go, which is part of the appeal of having a nice lead time of this 6 months, is work through, help us get the transition done. We'll find somewhere else that works for you to go. It does change staff hours. So currently they're working 5 or 6, 10+ hour days. Again, unpredictable overtime. They're working every third Saturday, and they were working most holidays. The new schedule, they'd be working 4 10-hour days. They would work the holiday schedule, the county holiday schedule, so they would get holidays off. CIs will work whatever the warden tells them to work. We will stay out of that one. But so this does help us more control overtime. If you're only servicing 5 centers a day, we're down to 1 crew. Hopefully 10 hours is enough that we can get through those 5 centers. It should shrink down the amount of overtime that we're seeing. There are obviously pros and cons. Have more control over the centers, stopping abuse, reducing volume, which would hopefully reduce tipping fees, and lowering our fuel usage. We have less vehicles running, hopefully lower fuel usage. Cons, residents might have to travel a little bit further. They might have to wait another day or 2 before they can get to their center of choice. It will be an adjustment for staff. Don't want to gloss over that. And we do anticipate that we will see an increase in trash on the side of the road. We'll work with Mr. Mitch and his team and with code enforcement to do what we can to try and curb a lot of those behaviors. But that leads us to what we're needing, not tonight, but today. We don't need your vote, but we do need your support. We don't want to move forward with this if you guys are like, nope, you've missed big time. And also option 1 or option 2. Again, back to the timing of if you prefer cluster or spread, of what you would like us to do to move forward. Do you have any questions or comments, concerns for Ms. Roser? Aye.
I think we need to do something, obviously, because what we're doing right now isn't working. I got 2 or 3 texts yesterday about the same issue out there, mostly at the register one, but I get them all the time. As far as the option, I don't think it really matters. The main thing is the citizens will know what they can do. And it's going to take a while to adjust. I understand that, and people aren't going to be happy about it, but I think it doesn't really bother me which option we go with, just for the fact that as long as we give enough lead time, I think they're going to have plenty of time to adjust. I mean, I know you're not going to be able to dump trash every single day of your week right next, 1,000 feet from your house. But, I think that's going to be better to cut out some of this abuse that we have. Now, I know you said the budget might go up a little bit. Do you think you're going to be able to save? I mean, we should be saving a lot of tippage fees, and the recycling we should be picking back up. I mean, most of that probably will be a neutral cost. Do y'all expect that?
We hope it. Expect yes, but then you have to think about what we might be pulling off the side of the road for that first 6 months. It might not be a wash. I think in the end, we expect to come out on the good, but we won't know until we do it.
Okay.
Go back to that slide. I mean, the difference is not much on the personnel costs with being able to, there you go. I mean, that's the annual. So yes, you're not talking 40, 50,000 annually. So we definitely could see that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I watched our metal recycling get cut in half. And Mr. Tillman was out taking some pictures last night of people dumpster diving and crawling in and out of the Goodwill bins that we're going to talk about later. So.
And I also know if we cut down on the commercial truck tires, I know that's going to be a huge, because I mean, every time I go by one, there's 15 or 20, I mean, y'all can dump it, and then the next day there's 15 or 20 new commercial truck tires there.
Yes, and just
I
the,
think around $20 or $25 each just to dispose of each one. So I
And it-
know we get a lot of fees off of those.
yes, and a good bit of the overtime cost is our employees having to clean up the mess that people make when they're chunking stuff out of the dumpsters, when they're clawing through it, looking for stuff. So with it being manned, we should be able to just pull the roll-offs and that's it, and not spend a bunch of time out there. So,
Something else I think we need to really do is concentrate on, whenever we get to this point, is really get together and create a team with Sheriff's Department, with code enforcement, with magistrate court, that we're actually enforcing the illegal dumping. Because I know right now some of the illegal dumping that's going on really isn't sticking all the way to the end, that some of them, they're getting off a little bit lighter than what they should be doing. So I hope we can have a conversation with all departments that's involved with this to make sure that the citations are being all the way to the end, and there's actually enforcement at the end, and not just a slap on the wrist that people are going to continue dumping on dirt roads.
That's such a good point that we have actually already started that. You will be seeing a change in ordinances coming forth so that we can make sure they are enforceable.
Okay, that's the main thing. No, that looks good to me. Appreciate it.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I have a question to be considered. You don't have to answer it today. It's a farmer question. We have always been able as farmers to put 2.5, it come in two 2.5 gallon jugs in a box, and we clean these jugs, these chemical jugs, with pressure washers that we stab them with and clean them. And we've been allowed to put those in these dumpsters at the recycling centers. Will the farmers still be able to do that? Now, if I'd rather have a consideration than a no.
Then you have our consideration. What chemical is it?
It's just farm chemicals.
Whatever they use for.
I don't think there's,
Herbicides,
most of us use
pesticides.
totes, which are 200, 300, 400 gallon containers. We're not going to put those in. Those are 2.5 jugs in a cardboard box.
Okay.
And they're clean now. Now, if we're going to leave chemical in those, if we're going to have chemical around the mouth of them, I understand. But most of us in this business are respectable and try to abide by the ordinances of the county. A comment, I've spoken with James Pope on code enforcement. He's going to hire people to enforce the ordinances of the county. I've spoken with Sheriff Noel Brown. he pledged his support in upholding the county ordinances and the laws of the state of Georgia. I spoke with Miss Judge Karen Riggs, and she's going to be supportive of our ordinances that we pass. I had a conversation with our Assistant County Manager, Miss Crystal Dawson, and her comment was, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Now, we're going to need the public's help on this. The ordinances of the county need to be abided by. Now, we don't expect the citizens of this county to enforce these ordinances. All we need is a tag number. A tag number, and then the law enforcement, the code enforcement will follow up. We need the public's help for this proposal.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think the plan is good. I've always said one of these days we're gonna find somebody laying in those dumpsters deceased, especially in the metal ones. They go out there and they clean them out before y'all get there. I do think it's gonna take a lot of education. But I do think that from the beginning, there's gonna be a lot of trash on the side of the road. I mean, it's easy to, before we started what we did start, there was a whole bunch of trash on the side of the road. But I think through education and, like Mr. Davis said, code enforcement, we probably gonna have to hire some more people to, be out there and watch this and get tag numbers. I do want to caution the citizens, don't try to do it yourself because you might get hurt. But just get some tag numbers. It's something new that we can try. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Any other questions or comments?
I do have one. This come up back when the sitters were manned, and you're gonna have a problem, like you know, with more trash beside the road and on people's farms. The main thing is the tires, and there was one farmer that farmed in Adabelle, excuse me. He wound up with a 19-foot fiberglass boat and a truckload of tires on his farm out there, and he come, and Dink was here, and Mitch can vouch for this, Dink and Kyle DeLoach. And the farmer asks, look, they were dumped illegally on my place. I'll take my farm hands, I'll put them in my truck, and I'll bring them to the recycling center because they're not mine, and I'm not paying to dump them. Now, I'll do that. And of course, Kyle DeLoach said, no, there ain't no way. Well, you can only guess what happened to them. He didn't pay but they went off of his farm, and I don't blame you. Now, if something like this passed, would y'all consider, if you sent your code enforcer out there and they determined that it was an illegal dump on somebody's property they had nothing to do with, then would y'all accept that off of them instead of making them, because it's gonna wind up beside the road, and me and Dink discussed it, and the tires went to the county roadside, and then the county had to send their truck and their gas and their labor out to pick the same tires up and carry them to the same dumpster that he was considering putting them in. So, I mean, if it's determined by your code officers that that person didn't do that to their self, then they gonna need some help from the county as far as, yeah, we'll accept it, because not, we're gonna have to pick it up side the road. So I just wanted to mention that was a problem, and that will be a problem. When you get to messing with them tires, James Pope ain't here, I don't think, but he went and looked at the place. Of course, I'm gonna accept total responsibility for it because I bought it here a few months back. I don't know, it's got 2,000 tires on it, I guess, that I got to pay, I think it's $400 a ton for them to come get.
I don't have a problem picking it up as long as Jeff's not twitching over there.
And I think with something like that, with code enforcement involved, where, we can find out who dumped them, and then that cost would actually be passed along to them.
That, and in the past, I mean, I live probably as close to one as anybody does and have all my entire life. And with Bobby Ivy and Bob Smith and the magistrate court, I've never known of a problem of them not enforcing what they were asked to enforce. Now, the problem is what you're talking about catching them. Now,
That's,
because most of the time, somebody that's gonna do that, they tread real late at night is what they do, and they scrap the metal because they're not using their funds for regular means that most people use their funds for, so they hard to catch. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, to mention that, because the people that own the land is the ones that winds up with the tires dumped on it, and then, of course, that's a burden for them. So that's all I got. And one more question, you talking about the CI employees, they'll be under whose control? Warden Tool? And they would be at the centers? Okay. And I guess that the county employees you got now, that if they wanted to apply to Warden Tool,
yes, if they chose to do so, they could apply for one of those positions.
Mr. Rushing, that also gives the flexibility with the warden having staff there that he can add additional inmates to that location for a day to do some deep cleaning, landscaping, that type stuff without any additional cost.
and I know it's a problem because I just went by the ones at my house, and most of the time, and God bless you, I know you're having a hard time because they're just killing whoever's out there with the trash, and most of the time, it overruns on the weekend, and Monday it's just all out. Probably one of the worst days, but they didn't have a chance to clean it yesterday, and we into Tuesday, so I know everything's getting bad.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the open centers, you have expandable. I realize that when you close the Alney Center, Stilson will need to be expanded. That is an option based on the Corps of EPD's regulations on wetlands. So that is a possibility of expanding the Stilson Center.
I'll make a note of that.
Dow, can you go back to the map? I believe it's the slide before the one that's showing now.
You want all of them?
All of them. Yes, ma'am.
That's it, it's on map. There it is.
So you've got two big open spots down here to the southern end of the county. Is there a possibility that we could put a center or an additional two centers down there to help provide some coverage down there?
That's the one, the big hole at the bottom is being serviced by Olney, which is
Okay.
the one, so we're closing because of abuse and just location.
Sure.
If we add any centers, that just adds cost.
Yeah.
So we
Got
would-
our COLA on the bottom side there in the middle, and it gets abused.
Okay.
Not as bad as Olney, but
That big hole down there is owned by Warehousers. I think it's a 3,700 acre tract of timber.
So, and then I have a question for Jeff regarding these ordinances. I know that there's some ordinances locally as far as illegal dumping and things like that, but is it possible for us to go back and assess the fines and things for those so that we could elevate them, so that if we catch somebody littering or dumping illegally, that the magistrate has a tool to actually put some teeth to this? Because I know we've had issues in the past where people have illegally dumped, pouring motor oil into to roll-offs and things like that. And it gets to the magistrate, and the fine is so small that it's inconsequential.
Well, the fines right now are, the maximum fine for a county ordinance violation by state law is $1,000. So that's the maximum per violation, with some exceptions, but this would not be one of them, I don't think. So that, the magistrate, now I don't know what kind of fines that they've levied in the past. But if it's less than $1,000, they could raise it to $1,000. But that's going to be up to the magistrate judge. And I understand some of y'all may have talked to them about it, but you understand they're judges. They're independent. I mean, they can't, agree ahead of time, yeah, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And a lot of it's going to be based on the evidence that's presented to them as well. So, yeah, I mean, we could, but I think right now the ordinances do allow for up to $1,000 per violation. I think the potential for the maximum fine is there. Yeah.
And I would like to say that this hadn't, I know it's just getting out in the open. This started being researched long before Miss Crystal, the new county manager, anybody got here. We done a study on this solid waste. How long, Christie? 2 or 3 years ago, it's been going on, and the study come back, and we paid a lot of good money for that study. Matter of fact, one of them things you would not think you ought to do, but.
Let me say this too. Now, state law, has a littering criminal offense. It's a misdemeanor. That can be prosecuted in state court. And I talked with the solicitor recently about it, and she actually does get some littering cited. She says it's usually in connection with a traffic offense, like where they've stopped somebody for speeding, but they've also thrown something out of the car. So that's typically what she's going to get over there. And going back to what Mr. Rushing was saying, a lot of times it is difficult to catch the perpetrator. It's just unless they're caught in the act. So that's one of the problems with trying to enforce littering ordinances. I think there is a rebuttable presumption if somebody's name is found in, like, let's say my power bill or whatever is in the pile of trash, there's a rebuttable presumption that I'm guilty, that I threw out this litter. But it's a rebuttable presumption, which means if nobody saw me do it, and I come into court and say, well, Your Honor, I didn't do that. I don't know who got my trash and threw it out there, but it wasn't me. They basically rebutted the presumption, so that's the problem with that one.
And going back to.
I'm all for enforcing it. I'm just saying it's not as easy as, it can be difficult to catch people.
And going back to the study, even that study said, now, I'm not saying I agree on all the closures, and but whoever wants to argue the point that don't close my center, and I'm like Mr. Newkirk, I got several phone calls yesterday. Now, I'm not going to argue that some of them need to be closed. Now, I'm not the man to tell you which ones need to be closed, because that lady over there probably knows way more about it than I do. It's going to be a little pain for everybody, but the study that we done 2 or 3 years ago, the findings of that study was Bullitt County has too many collection centers. The logistics is killing y'all with your taxpaying money. And then we went another avenue, and this information is for the general public, because I think every commissioner was here when this went on. We looked at privatizing it. The counties around us have trash cans that you put curbside, and we looked at that, and we called in Allgreens, and it all winds up at Allgreens around here mostly anyway, so, that's. And they come in and they done a study. They were talking about, well, we'll take y'all centers and we'll manage it. And of course, that would end in the same result that they talking about now. That would do away with the county employees, and Allgreens would manage the centers, take our property and manage our centers for, of course, it's a fee. And when they come back, and they in it for the money-making business, and we know that. And of course, that's what makes the world go round. And they done a study, and they come in here and said, well, the first thing we would have to do for us to even consider privatizing it is we gonna have to close some of them centers, because it is costing y'all entirely too much money for the logistics on this trash to haul it. That you got to get a better system going. So there's no doubt. And they're in the trash business. There's no doubt that some of them need to be closed. I think that was the full intentions of some of them. Now you're going to run into some problems. I do have some questions like 5 points. 5 points if you're going to close the ones around it. It's a business center too, but it's actually geographically located in a place that there's no more land to buy around it. It's surrounded by all three roads. And it's out there between two subdivisions and the walking trail and all of that. And so it's going, if it grows anymore, it's gonna have to be moved. Which I'm not saying that piece of land wouldn't bring good money, but I'm saying you're gonna be out there in a district or a part of the county that you're gonna have to buy some land. But that was when you go to closing these, and I know it wasn't, just someone's gonna have to be added on to no matter what you do. That's all I got to say, but I did want to support what everybody's talking about, because it ain't like that these two ladies just walked up here and made this map up. It has been supported by a company that we hired to do a study as county commissioners, and supported by a company that was gonna take it for them to make money, and everything comes back to, you need to close some of the centers.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Akins. Is the legality of whether you're guilty or innocent, is that beyond a shadow of a doubt, the preponderance of the evidence? Or is it, what's the definition of these ordinances as far as guilt can be construed?
Well, I think it's probably beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, it's not, county ordinances aren't really criminal offenses. There's an older case that described it as quasi-criminal, I think because they didn't know what else to call it. But you can be sentenced to, I mean, there is some potential for jail time. I don't think they've done that much. But you don't have a criminal record, so that's why it's not a criminal offense. It's not really a misdemeanor. But I think the same standard beyond a reasonable doubt would apply. Yeah.
Just one case though that I can tell you that happened right there by my house. So it come from Vidalia, and there was about 5 trash bags. It was closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a deep clean, like Mr. Tillman said. And there was about 5 trash bags there with, I don't know, must have been 2,000 bingo tickets in it. And I had no idea where they played bingo at, but there was somebody's name in there, and they were from Vidalia. And of course, Bobby Ivy got that and went to Vidalia and said, hey, y'all's trash around there. And they said, well, I was at a bingo function, I guess, whatever that is. And she throwed her stuff in the trash can. And of course, whoever cleaned up the bingo hall, their son was coming to Georgia Southern. The center was closed, and he had 5 bags of trash in his truck. He was going to dress, so he throwed it in my ditch out there. And of course, I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't know if the lady had to pay the deal or what, but she said that's how her name got in the trash. So if I was the judge, I guess I'm not a judge, so I'm not going to worry about it. But I guess they would have a decision to make of whether she was guilty or not.
I applaud y'all putting this together. I think that we have to figure out a way to manage the situation. I think that in the process of doing this, though, there's some data that we need to collect now before we start, and some that we can come back and look at, whether it's 6 months into this or a year into it, whatever it is. And I just wrote down a couple things that I thought of here. Your tippage fees, as far as do they go up or do they go down? Fuel consumption for picking up trash after this versus what you're doing now. Overtime costs. Loss recovery, particularly on tires, because we have so many tires that are illegally dumped in the county collection centers now. Recycled materials recovery, as far as we know people are dumpster diving now. They come in, they get the scrap metal and things like that. They pull it out and they're selling it. Like Mr. Rushing said, if we're controlling the dumps better and controlling the access, we should be able to see some kind of an increase in our ability to sell those things. And then the overall, and some of this is going to come from outside of solid waste, the overall cost for litter pickup off the sides of the road, because there is a cost to that, whether it's in man hours or whatever we're doing there. And then the number of convictions that are made for illegal littering and dumping.
Honestly, we have most of that now.
Sure.
Anything that we don't have readily, I'm sure we can find, like, I'm sure we could get, how many hours is Warden taking his guys out there to.
And I think,
so
well.
we're happy to come back in a year.
And the only
say,
reason I
"Here's
say that is because how are we going to measure success with this? And it has to be more than you know, because we know that if we're looking at something that's subjective and we're saying, I don't like it or I do like it, well, we need some real data that takes this and says, this is not subjective, this is quantifiable data that says, we know these things, this is where we were at before we started with just a free-for-all with the dumpsters versus now we've made these changes, you know, we've injected a new variable here, and this is what we're seeing now. So, and then from there, we need to look at it and say, okay, what do we do to make this even better from there? So,
Yeah, we can come back like I said, if we implement in January, we'll have 6 months of data to come back, so we can come back in a year and say, here's what we've seen, and I wrote all those metrics down.
And before everybody gets all bent out of shape about the money, Mr. Chris Eldridge down there, him and Mr. Randy Tillman and Ms. Crystal are researching a fund that we done paying. If it turns out that we paying a fund unnecessarily, then that money would be able to be contributed to this, which would handle it with no problem.
The construction debris, are we gonna be able to separate that and take it to a cheaper dump site? Is that the plan that we starting on in January on that, or is that something that's gonna implement further down the road?
I know C&D at the landfill, they're looking at possibly if they get the county side, they're looking at separating the bulk waste and C&D out there. I know Allgreens already does it, and C&D is cheaper to dispose of than regular bulk waste.
Okay.
Yes, we will, and Statesboro has purchased property to expand the C&D landfill that they have. So we'll be much better able to manage that, because right now, again, it's all just mixed together, so we're paying the most per ton. So we'll have that ability too. And the hope is, as we go along, we got somebody manning it, we can actually maybe add some more recycling. And we'll just have to look at the markets and what makes sense. But hopefully we can add some more as well. You know, aluminum probably gets better per ton than just mixing it all up. So we'll have opportunities that we do not have now. So to the chairman's point, we can definitely get better and improve as we work through it. You know, one of the trash things is a lot of times it's loose trash and it's people not covering the load in the back of their truck. So, you know, again, that's an easy one to, you don't have to worry about digging through a bag or who did whatever. You got eyes on it and your load's not covered and you've been slinging stuff up and down the road. So that's usually a concern around centers too, because you'll see stuff on the sides of the road where people aren't covering it.
Are we gonna be able to take any of this directly to Allgreens to save on fuel, or do we still have to bring everything back to the city, or is that still?
We're using All Green now when it makes sense. You know, and same with the city. We have talked with the city. You know, it's my understanding it may have been 20 years ago. They just looked at some of the SPOS money, just buying down the tippage fee across the board. I think it would make more sense for private haulers to pay a higher rate, and for governmental entities to be less. So we're still having those conversations as well. So you could buy us down. Because with it being lower, anyway, we're getting off track a little bit, but we are lower at this Statesboro's facility than our adjoining counties, and enough so it's like $10-15 per ton, to where I could see someone being willing to drive in here and dump their stuff as a private hauler instead of staying in their home county. So there are still, we're not done, but I think this would be a good first step. And just again, just ask for public's patience and yours, because I'm sure there will be some grumbling along the way. But I do think it's attainable, and people will get used to knowing my center's open on these days. This is when I go and dump my trash. You know, we just get used to a new routine. So I think it works.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been going strong for an hour. Y'all want to go ahead and push through and do this last presentation and then take a break, or would you rather just, okay. All right. All right, Jolene, looks like you're up.
Good morning. So over the past several months, we've worked with the Archer Company to complete a classification and compensation study. Mr. Jim Battaglia is with us virtually, and he's going to be presenting an overview of the study's methodology, market findings, and then also the proposed pay plan and compensation structure. And there's nothing to vote on. This is just informational for implementation into the FY27 budget. Thank you.
Sir, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Should I get started?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, you guys should have in the packet the proposed pay plan by Alpha and Great Order.
Yes, I got a couple of them. I know y'all did like the hourly rate or the salary rate. Whenever you compared that to other counties, do y'all factor in like other benefits like health insurance and retirement, or y'all just go strictly off of the salary itself?
The study we did today
Plan itself is
is
just
based
salary.
on base
Okay, so
salary.
some counties might have better benefit package than another city or county, so the actual comparable is not apples to apples.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, do we include employees that get to drive vehicles home that don't have to pay for fuel back and forth to the, I guess, the location that they work at?
No, the comprehensive pay study is just salary.
Okay, so it doesn't factor in anything that, all the benefits or perks that they get?
No, sir.
Okay. And also, on slide 11, do we have any jobs that were over 10% of the midpoints? You were very clear on pointing out how low we were, but do we have any over the 10%? Off of slide 11, go in the opposite direction.
Jim, did you hear that question?
Yes. So some of the jobs that, there are a few. The assistant director of Parks and Recs, the midpoint was 11% over the market. I'm sorry, I looked at the, no, it's 11%. There aren't a lot.
But there are some, though.
Emergency medical technology and again focused on midpoints.
Well, I know the answer, but do those get brought down and these other ones go up, or do they just stay above? Okay, appreciate it.
Other questions?
Any other questions or discussion? All right, thank y'all very much.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity.
We have two folks that are signed up to speak under public comments. Do y'all want to go ahead and do those or take a break now? Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and move in and do our public comments. At this time, I'll recognize those citizens who have signed up to address the board. Once your name is called, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and make your comments. All speakers recognized will be allotted 5 minutes.
Tim Powell.
Good morning, Commissioners. And my name is Tim Powell. I live in Bullitt County. And it's nice we're talking about all these numbers because that's kind of what I wanted to bring up since we're moving into the budget negotiations and probably leading to tax negotiate or talk about taxes and whether they're going up or not. So last year we were told that there was no fluff in the budget, and the budget was a little higher than it was the year before, leading to a tax increase. So I've been thinking about fluff ever since then. And y'all are probably going to look at these as minor things, but I look at them as, you know, dollars that can add up to tens of thousands of dollars over time. So I've just been noticing some fluff during the past year. Some of it most recently, mowing the airport fields when it hasn't rained since the first of the year, right after y'all had the burn ban. And I went to the Georgia Forestry Commission website to see if our burn ban was counteracted by theirs or whatever. And while I was there, I noticed that it said, do not mow your grass, do not mow fields, do not mow at all during drought conditions. And there we were burning $5 a gallon diesel fuel or more. I had a man sitting on a brand new tractor mowing a field that had not grown since the last frost. Same thing was going on at Fred Fletcher Park under the pecan trees. I can tell you, as a degreed agronomist, centipede grass does not grow under pecan trees under drought conditions. It does not need to be mowed. Opening splash May 2 with full staff, all day rain, 60-degree temps, nobody there. That's fluff. 5 to 8 trash trucks parked at Public Works all day long. We're also reducing truck drivers, I noticed on this most recent proposal. I can't figure out why we have so many trucks that are parked. These trucks are very expensive. All of them look to be fairly recent models. That's fluff. Employees driving county trucks home for lunch. I don't even know if these trucks are assigned to them to drive home. They may just be using them during the day. I've seen it with my own eyes. That's fluff. Employees putting together puzzles, jigsaw puzzles in the office on taxpayers' dime. That is definitely fluff. And then there's what I call reverse fluff. We've got a proposal in your agenda there to lease a building, I guess it's a building, at the airport for $50 a month to a company that wants to do business there. $50, what is this, 1950? $50 a month? Is it an outhouse? So I called a friend of mine who rents porta potties. His rate is $75 a month. So at least if it is an outhouse, we ought to be charged. And by the way, we're paying for the utilities for this business too. That's fluff. So on top of all of that, I want to talk about the transparency of these budget meetings. The county has not shown a live or recorded budget meeting, including the 2 budget retreats for the last 2 years that are held out at Georgia Southern. This, the reason given was that Georgia Southern facility did not have internet capability. I can't imagine why they wouldn't have capability. I would imagine that Georgia Southern has the most broadband capability of any place in Bullitt County. I mean, half the students are taking classes online. If it's impossible to get the broadcast done from there, then we need to hold it somewhere else where it can be either broadcast live or recorded. The first budget workshop of this year was held in this room. It was not broadcasted. When this happened last year, a high-ranking county staff person said commissioners tend to open up and express themselves more readily when cameras are not on. Now, y'all, I don't think y'all are that bashful. So I can't stay for the rest of the meeting. I'd like to hear what y'all say in the budget workshop while I'm working this afternoon. So I hope that you'll leave the camera running, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
It will be run.
Ms. Kathy Dixon.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Kathy Dixon. I live at 410 Claiborne Avenue. I would like to thank you for solving the parking problem at the annex during early voting. I am sure that the citizens coming to conduct business during that time appreciate it also. I hope you will continue to look for a solution on the heat on the railings. I would also like to thank you for the meeting last week, but I do not believe that it qualifies as a town hall meeting. The last 2 have been more like a meet and greet, and while I appreciate all of the staff that was there, that's not what a town hall is. A town hall meeting is designed for the citizens to be able to ask questions and have answers in a less formal setting where you're not looking down at me, but looking across at me. If someone comes and is afraid of speaking up, then you can have provide cards so that they can write their questions so that they can have answers. Or they might can ask someone else to speak. Never been a problem for me, and I'll be sure and ask their question. The give and take between citizens and you as a commissioner is important so that you know what our concerns are for this county. And lastly, as we all know, Governor Kemp has called a special meeting, a session to the legislature to address the Supreme Court ruling about gerrymandering districts. I believe it is time for Bullock County to do the same. A citizens committee needs to be appointed to draw districts in our county. Whether they use the template provided by the Board of Education or they create one of their own, the work needs to begin. Hopefully, a plan can be prepared and presented to you and to the legislature in January for approval. I do not think that we need to implement this before the 2028 elections, but we do need to begin to work on it. I hope you do not put this endeavor on the back burner, but move forward with addressing the issue. I thank you for your time and your service to our county.
So that concludes our public comments for the day. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a recess. If we get a motion, please.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Connor and a second from Mr. Simmons. All in favor of a 10-minute recess? Motion carries unanimously. We'll re-adjourn at, we'll just call it 10:25. Good. All right, we're gonna get started again, y'all. Sorry. So while everybody's working their way back to their seats, I'm gonna go ahead and start reading through the consent agenda, and then we'll discuss what we want to do with these things. Number one, approve the minutes from Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. Number two, approve the minutes from Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. Number three, approve the assignment of lease interest in Building 15 to the new owner, Southeast Avionics LLC. Number four, approve the assignment of lease interest of Building 12 to the new owner of Southeast Avionics LLC. Number five, approve the ratification of Anthem ASO rate confirmation document and business associate agreement. Number six, approve an intergovernmental agreement with the juvenile court in the Ogeechee Judicial District. Number seven, approve a resolution authorizing acceptance of Silo Drive and Wood Lake subdivision. Number eight, approve a special event permit for the Georgia Police Canine Foundation to host a nonprofit event at Ogeechee Technical College, 20 Joe Kennedy Boulevard on June 6, 2026 from 5 p.m. until 11 p.m. Number nine, approve a lease and fixed base operator agreement with Low Country Flight Services. Number 10, approve the bulk oil bid results from Colonial Oil Industries Incorporated for fleet management. Number 11, approve the purchase of a 30 by 52 pavilion for Fletcher Park through a Sourcewell contract from RCP Shelters Incorporated in the amount of $65,805. Number 12, approve a community center license agreement with Brooklet, Georgia. Number 13, approve the engagement letter with Troutman Strategies for Government Relations Services for the period of June 1st, 2026 through May 31st, 2026. Do we have any discussion? Would we like to move anything to new business? What are we doing here, folks?
I'd like to pull number 9 out, that's it.
Number 9 is going to new business. Any other items?
11.
Number 11, going to new business. All right, any others? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Mosley, can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Rushing. All in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of items number 9 and 11? The motion carries unanimously. Moving into new business, we'll go ahead and start with number 9 from the consent agenda. Approve a lease and fixed base operator agreement with Low Country Flight Services.
Good morning, I'm Kathy Boykin, the airport manager. This request to approve a lease and fixed base operator agreement with Low Country Flight Services. The gentleman has a flight school at the airport now. He rents half of an office. We have about a 10 by 12 office, and he splits that office space with the EAA, so they have their flight simulator in there. So basically, he's renting right now the corner with a desk in it for the $50 a month. What he wants to do is expand his operation from not just flight training, but to maintenance. We discussed a few weeks ago that there's one hangar that's privately owned, and he is leasing that hangar from the private owner, and he wants to start doing maintenance there. So this basically is just to modify the lease agreement to allow him to offer maintenance as well as flight training.
So what kind of square footage is he getting for that $50 a month?
The office is probably 10 by 12, so he's getting 5 by 12, 60 square feet.
I'm talking about that he's also getting the hangar also?
No, we don't own the hangar.
Okay, so all this is just for the office space?
Right, and the office space is the lease, and generally it's to allow him to add maintenance services to flight training.
But that's not going to happen on the county property, that's going to be on the private property?
Right, that's going to be in the private hangar.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Any other comments or discussion on this item? None, I'll call for a motion.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Simmons. Can I get a second? Got a second from Mr. Rushing. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 11 from the consent agenda. Approve the purchase of a 30 by 52 pavilion for Fletcher Park through a Sourcewell contract from RCP Shelters Incorporated in the amount of $65,805.
Good morning, Deidre Cosby, Recreation Director. And what would be your question?
You gonna put this on dirt or concrete?
Concrete.
You gonna square and level? Who's gonna square and level?
Right now, we're looking at doing all this stuff in-house. I know we've been talking with Mr. Toole, Warden Toole, and just so I can make sure that I articulate this correctly, is we're going to get with them, do all this stuff in-house. He does have some people that we use with the inmate labor, and they've done a pretty good job on their past projects, so we're going to give this a shot.
So the cost of the concrete will be on top of the
Yes.
$65,805.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion.
To approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Mosley. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Davis. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving down to item number 1 in new business. Mr. Jeff Akins, you're going to talk to us about acquiring eminent domain on parcel 4 for Cypress Lake Road.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You have a resolution that would authorize acquisition of parcel 4 on the Cypress Lake Bridge project by eminent domain by filing a declaration of taking for Bullock County to acquire fee simple title to the parcel and a temporary construction easement for the duration of the paving project. And the appraised fair market value on this is $500. Actually, it's actually less than that. It's only just shy of 3/100ths of an acre. But they rounded up to 500 as the minimum compensation on a parcel. So we recommend approval. This is necessary to avoid, and Ron, Mr. Nelson can speak to this more if you want him to, but we need to proceed with this in order to avoid delaying that project. Would you like to answer any questions?
Is the current owner just not wanting to give the land up, or what's the reasoning behind this?
Well, they were unable to, they reached an impasse in negotiations fairly quickly. I think the current owner wants a lot more money than what it appraises for, which we just can't do that, so.
We're not even anywhere close on numbers?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mr. Nelson, my brother donated his parcel?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay, I want to make sure.
And this is down in the, I'm guessing down in the swamp or wetland area, so it's all just wetlands anyway, so it's non-usable land to begin with?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Simmons and a second from Mr. Rushing. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 2 on new business. Motion to approve a resolution to acquire by eminent domain parcel 12 for the Josh Smith Road paving project.
Yes, sir. Similar situation as the last one. This would authorize the acquisition of parcel 12 on Josh Smith Road to acquire it by a declaration of taking. It also includes a perpetual drainage easement and a temporary construction easement. The appraised value on this one is $13,200, so it's a good bit more, but it's a much larger parcel. It's 0.37 acres. And then it also includes, as I said, a permanent drainage easement and a temporary construction easement. And the reason for this condemnation, it's in bankruptcy, and actually they had gotten an order from the bankruptcy court that authorized the sale of the property. The reason they weren't able to consummate it was the lender that they needed a release from was just non-responsive, would not respond. So in order to avoid, again, delaying the project, we've actually already got a contract let on this one. We need to go ahead and acquire this property by eminent domain.
So we actually agreed on the price and everybody was okay with it, but we just couldn't get a hold of the lender to do the final?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on this item?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jeff, doesn't the construction revert back to the county when it's completed, the road is completed? I'm sorry, revert back to the owner? There was something in there about
The temporary easement does, yeah. Yes.
.0002? Park a truck on that?
Yeah, it's not very much. Because temporary construction easement is 0.13 acres. Yeah. Yes, we don't actually acquire fee simple. It's just a temporary easement. It basically disappears when the project's completed. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion from Mr. Rushing. Can I get a second? Second. Got a second from Mr. Connor. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 3. Got a motion to approve a contract with Allstate Construction Group Incorporated as construction manager for the Bullitt County Jail addition.
Yes, sir. This is the jail addition, obviously. Proposals were solicited for a construction manager at risk through a competitive sealed proposal process that included pre-qualifications. And 6 firms submitted statements of qualifications, and 3 of those firms were pre-qualified to submit sealed proposals by the evaluation team. After reviewing the proposals and conducting interviews with the 3 pre-qualified firms, the evaluation team recommends the selection of Allstate Construction Group, Inc. for construction manager at risk of the jail project. The presented contract provides for the construction manager to provide pre-construction phase services in working with the architect on project design and cost on an hourly basis not to exceed $70,000. Construction phase services will be provided for 2.95% of the cost of the work as the fee, with a guaranteed maximum price. Approval and execution of the guaranteed maximum price amendment, which is included as Exhibit A to the presented contract, will be accomplished at a later date when design is sufficiently complete to enable the construction manager to furnish the guaranteed maximum price. And Will Sumner, he's the president of Allstate, he's here today. I don't know if he wants to say anything, but the evaluation team recommends approval of this contract.
Mr. Sumner, you're welcome to come up and speak if you'd like.
Mr. Chairman, Board, just want to thank y'all, thank your staff for going through that process. We have worked with the architect y'all have chosen, or a consultant from them, Nelson, for a number of years on other state and county jail projects, so looking forward to the project with y'all's approval today.
Thank you for coming out today. Any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for a motion, please. I got a motion to approve from Mr. Mosley. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Simmons. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 4. Got a motion to approve the authorization to terminate an agreement with Goodwill Industries of the Coastal Empire. Ms. Rose Bonner is going to come up and tell us all about it.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. In going over all the stuff that's the centers and whatnot, one of the issues that we do have there as well is the Goodwill sheds, the centers that they take collections. I understand the Goodwill, everything behind it, but the problem is what they're designed for is not what they're being used for. I see numerous times checking the cameras where people are crawling out of them in the early morning hours like they sleep in them all night. I see people pulling their vehicles up as close as they can, opening their car door and using their car door to climb up inside it's just, the Goodwill itself, when they come out to clean them out, I've seen multiple times where the trucks just pull in, they park, have lunch, whatever they do, I don't know. They're still leaving a mess outside the centers as they're pulling out. You got the scavengers coming in and rooting through. I included pictures. There's multiple on any days. There's a mess outside of them, which when we go through, our people has to clean the mess up. And then as well as the stuff that is donated to Goodwill that they do not take, then gets thrown into our containers as well. So in looking into it, the contract or the agreement that was signed back on January 29th, 2004, it states in there that it can be terminated anytime without, with or without cause. So I am requesting permission to move forward with having that agreement terminated and have those removed off of out of the centers.
Questions or comments? Mr. Connor, you're thinking real hard over there.
No, that's just terrible. You know, that used to be a good thing, because in 2004, let's see, I was a year out of high school. So, you know, I remember when they put those Goodwill centers there, they were out they were everywhere. You know, it's just a shame that it's come to this, but I understand, Ms. Rose, and yes, we got to do something about it, but it's just a shame that that's the way it's turned out.
I would say when they were first put there, they were operated real nice, but they have turned into, I live down the road from one, and they turned into quite a mess now.
Yeah, they're more of a liability now, I think, than anything.
And saying no is not no forever, it's no for right now.
Yeah.
So,
And it might be something whenever we get the manned stations back up, we might be able to look at it in a year. After we get 6 to 8 months in, we
Yeah,
might be able
and
to open
maybe,
it back
you know,
up.
in
But,
the
you
agreement.
know, as of right now, it's just too much of a mess for everybody right now.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion, please.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Connor and a second from Mr. Newkirk. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, thank you, Ms. Rose. Got Mr. Ron Nelson's going to motion to approve a contract with Tim Lanier Construction LLC in the amount of $221,452 to provide construction services for FY 26 CPE02 Pleasant Hill Road Drainage Project Pleasant Hill Road Drainage Repairs Project. The cost for this work will be funded by FEMA, GEMA, and T-Splost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Nelson, County Engineer. Just give you a little background on this, and first of all, this was our last FEMA-eligible Tropical Storm Debbie culvert. We do have another culvert that will be funded through another mechanism, but this is our last FEMA culvert. We do have a FEMA bridge on G.W. Oliver, but this is the last culvert. So that being said, a little more background. So an existing 4-barrel, 9-foot by 9-foot reinforced concrete bridge culvert north of Portal, Georgia on Pleasant Hill Road at Lots Creek, approximately 675 feet north of the Moore Road intersection, sustained damage during the August 2024 Tropical Storm Debbie flood event. The damage to this reinforced concrete bridge culvert involves one wing wall on the inlet or upstream end of the culvert. The wing wall sheared off as a result of floodwaters at its connection point with the exterior wall on the box culvert. The roadway at this location is open to traffic and was not damaged. Just a little background on our recent events over the last year. The Bullock County Board of Commissioners approved a contract with Parker Engineering LLC in August 2025 in the amount of $18,000 for design and engineering services to deliver project plans and bid documents for this project. We were able to get this project qualified through our coordination with our EMA director, Mr. Corey Kemp. The project was qualified for reimbursement at an amount of $180,965. The FEMA amount for reimbursement is $135,723.75. The GEMA reimbursement is $18,096.50. That brings the Bullock County portion on this culvert, as regarding the FEMA reimbursement portion, $27,144.75. We were able to put this project out to bid during the month of March and April. We received one response. That response came from Tim Lanier Construction LLC in the amount of $262,763. And this amount was considerably higher than what the original engineer's estimate for the project was, around $180,000. It was over 46% higher. So leadership said, go back to the table, figure out what you can try to do to get a better price for this job. So we coordinated end of April with a local contractor on site to determine what we could try to do to change the scope, modify the scope, revise the plans, revise our approach. We got real good feedback, and then we also did the same for Mr. Tim Lanier Construction Company as well. And at the conclusion of our gathering on Friday, May the 1st, we decided to give Mr. Tim Lanier Construction an opportunity to reevaluate and resubmit a revised bid. He did so. He turned that in the following Monday, and his final price came in at $221,452, which was still above our original estimate of $180,000, or around 23%. However, we feel like this is a very good price to do the work. The county will support this project with some of the fill material that's necessary, the hauling that's necessary, and then we will also close the road for a maximum duration of 28 consecutive calendar days. But I am in favor of trying to push this through and get this project moving forward in the amount of $221,452, and it will be funded through FEMA, GMA, and T-SPLOST. Any questions?
Will the whole thing will we just be responsible with like 10 or 15%, or do we have to pay more since the price was above what FEMA estimated?
We only qualify for reimbursement eligibility for the first $180,000.
Okay.
Anything beyond $180,000 to go to the 221 bid price, 100% T-SPLOST.
Okay, appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion, please.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion to approve from Mr. Newkirk and a second from Mr. Mosley. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Nelson, got item number 6, motion to approve a grant application for Bullitt County to receive FY 2026 Georgia Department of Transportation Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant Local Road Assistance Administration Funds in the amount of $2,249,153.62, requiring no local matching funds.
So this is the same item that we put in front of the board last meeting, earlier in May, and you approved it. The problem was when we went through and actually made the application with GDOT, they did not see it our way as far as we were trying to allocate funds towards professional services. And the professional services side of what we were allocating funds towards, GDOT said it was more in line with administrative items. It did not qualify for preliminary engineering items. So we went back and we came up with a better way to provide this in front of the board. And we're asking to reallocate these same funds that were previously approved for acceptance, where $500,000 would be allocated FY '27 to construction, engineering, and inspection services, which I have confirmed that is an eligible item that can be approved through GDOT. Also, the total cost for construction for Hightower Road and Josh Smith Road, which is moving forward with execution of a contract, in the amount of $1,578,603. And then the remaining portion of $170,550.62 would be set aside for improvements regarding a right turn lane on State Route 67 southbound at Station 16, also improving the driveway from the existing residential to a commercial driveway. So the request is to have these funds allocated towards those 3 projects. Are there any questions?
If there's no questions or comments, I'm going to call for a motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Simmons. Going to get a second from Mr. Rushing. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Nelson, I believe you get one more. It's item number 7, a motion to accept a sales reservation agreement from Yam Grandy Mitigation for compensatory mitigation having a total cost of $706,960. Looks like it's going to be covered with T-Splosh funds for 80% or T-Splosh funds with 80% of the cost being eligible for federal reimbursement.
So this is a sales agreement. It's a reservation. It's not actually making the purchase at this time. Similar to what we've done on Cypress Lake Road with making the sales reservation, coincidentally to this same mitigation bank. But this project has been around, the S&S Greenway Phase 3, since 2019. Around July the 1st of 2019, Bullitt County Board of Commissioners and the Georgia Department of Transportation entered into a project framework agreement. The project actually started with a total original project framework agreement amount of $375,000, 80% of which would be reimbursable. Over the course of the last 7 years, we have seen 3 supplemental agreements, and the total amount for eligible reimbursement has gone to $2,121,836.80. 80% of that is eligible for reimbursement. 20% will be paid by the county through T-Splosh funds. These funds are only for the pre-construction activities. These are not eligible for construction activities. Now, I am discussing this with GDOT at this point in time, trying to see what is remaining. Can that be rolled into construction? The decision's not been made yet, but we are moving in that direction quickly because this project will be eligible for letting to go into contract for construction October 2026, later this year. I did shop this through 4 different mitigation banks, and I believe we did get a very favorable number as far as these mitigation credits are concerned. These are wetland credits and stream credits. Total cost for this mitigation is $706,960. I did get confirmation that we are eligible for 80% of that being reimbursable. And that being said, the T-Splosh funding for this will come up to $141,392. The 80% federal reimbursement is $565,568.
I know we're not actually purchasing them now. When does that take place? Is that about the time the job gets let, or is that going to be before that?
It'll actually take place over the course of the next 45 to 60 days. This project is in review with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Once they move through their evaluation of the permit and see that the delineation of the project, and they agree to it, that these mitigation funds will actually cover the impacts that have been assessed, they will basically come back through the sub-consultant with the environmental group, triggers back to us to go ahead and make the purchase, and then we'll finalize the transaction. So I'll come back before the board one more time and say, can we actually make the purchase?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Davis?
these wetland credits are a good deal, but they're lower than what some of the competition was 6 months ago.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve from Mr. Connor. Can I get a second? Got a second from Mr. Newkirk. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And I said that was your last one, but wait, there's more. Got item number 8 here. A motion to approve a change order to the original contract with Reeves Construction Company for FY 26 CPE05 Bullitt County Road Resurfacing Project in the amount of $150,933.85 to approve additional asphalt pavement resurfacing work on Pine End Road. Cost for this work will be funded by T-Splosh.
Thank you, sir. So you've already heard this morning that there will be some changes associated with some of the collection centers. This is one of them on Pine End Road. Pine End Road will receive a new collection center. It'll move from its existing location off of 46 to this location several thousand feet along Pine End Road. In going out and looking at this road and looking at the site for this collection center, the road itself is in very poor shape. With the amount of increased traffic that's going to come to it, truck traffic especially going in and out of this center, We need to take action now and make some improvements to the road that connects State Route 46 to US 301. Went through and actually evaluated the road and came up with a similar type process that we're using on this resurfacing contract. Fortunately, we can utilize and leverage some of the existing costs in the contract. So essentially, we're just asking to increase the value of the contract using existing pay items. And the total comes to $150,933.85, all of which will come from T-SPLOS funds.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from this. I own a portion of land it touches.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments on this item?
Just a question for Chris. Are we burning through a lot of T-SPLOS money or not? We good to go over there? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments, I'm gonna call for a motion on this item.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got an approval or a motion to approve from Mr. Simmons. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Mosley. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. All right, I believe that concludes our new business for the day. I'll just make a note for everybody and for the record that the monthly reports from all the departments have been submitted and they're in the agenda packet for your review. Moving forward, do we have any comments from the county manager? How about the staff?
Good morning. I'll keep it brief. Brian Hendricks, Director of EMS. Just want to remind all y'all that this week is EMS week. The theme for this week is improving outcomes together, and on a place of emphasis on together because, you know, that's how we save lives. Lives is together from y'all allowing me to put trucks where they need to be to Ben's guys and States for Fire helping us with first response and law enforcement. It's all a team effort. So if you see my guys and girls out in the public, just give them a kind thanks and thank them for what they do because it really is a thankless job. So thank you.
Thank you. I can just tick that off of my comments now since you already did that. I do have a question for you before you leave. How many firefighters from the county have y'all trained as EMTs so far?
Chief Tapley?
8. Over there. About to finish up.
Okay.
8.
And then once y'all finish this group up, you'll start another cohort?
We'll be doing another group, yes.
And the end state here is to train all the firefighters
Yes.
as EMTs as well,
Yes.
correct? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments from the staff? How about the commissioners? What y'all want to talk about? Everybody's quiet. Okay. I got a couple things I want to talk about here real quick. First off, planning and zoning, we have a vacancy right now. We're going to start doing interviews for that vacancy the first week in June. I've gotten 4 applications so far. If you're interested in applying, please get in contact with Ms. Venus White. She can get you an application and get it filled out. On that same note, we have a vacancy on the Development Authority of Bullitt County that we're looking to fill. If you're interested in potentially getting onto the Development Authority, please get with Ms. Venus. She can get you the application. We'll get that filled out. 2 weeks ago, myself, Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Mosley, Mr. Eldridge, James Pope, and Mary DeLoach, where's she at? She already run out. Took a little field trip. We went to 2 places. We went to Columbia County and spoke with their county manager about the data centers that they are about to build there in the county. We also went to Social Circle and walked around the Facebook or Meta data center that's located there in Morgan County. We'll talk some more about this next week as we move forward with some zoning decisions. But, I started looking at this and trying to break it down as far as what are the concerns that people have about data centers. And what I came down to was water and power use, infrastructure upgrades, tax incentives, local community protections, and noise and environmental insults, and then the local benefits. I've had some calls from some folks here in the local community that are saying that they would like to see the commissioners form a working group of citizens to investigate these issues more. And what I want to do is just plant a seed today with the commissioners to see about doing that as before we go forward with any other kind of action on this item. Final two things, I'd like to remind everybody that the county offices will be closed next Monday for Memorial Day. Hope everybody gets the opportunity to go out and have a good Memorial Day. Please be careful while you're doing that. But I would ask that you also remember the reason that we have Memorial Day is to take a moment to remember the folks that have lost their lives to defend this country. And this is very personal for me. I have a good friend of mine that I spent a year in Iraq with that was killed on the 22nd of April, 2011 in Afghanistan. He was hit by indirect fire. Basically, a mortar round hit him and killed him instantly. His name was Captain Josh McClymans. He was my friend, and I can tell you that every year at Memorial Day, this is something that I think about and what he went through. He had two young kids at home that no longer have a father and a wife that doesn't have a husband. And he did that without any thought of what was going on. He was there trying to take care of soldiers and get them home. Along those same lines, today is Election Day. This is the Super Bowl. Whether it's state or local races, this is your opportunity to get out and make your voice known about who is going to be the leaders of this community and really the state. There's nothing I'm prouder of in this country that we have the opportunity to come out and everyone gets a chance to make their voice known, and we have a peaceful transition of leadership. If you go anywhere in the world, people are envious of that opportunity. I've been places where people were willing to die and literally died just standing in line for that opportunity. Please do not take that for granted. If you haven't voted already, I encourage you to get out and do that today. And with that concludes all my comments. We're now going to move into our budget work session. Do I need a motion for us to move into the work session, Jeff?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's on the agenda.
All right, so we're just going to move into the budget work session, and I'm going to turn things over to Miss Christy King.
All right. Good morning again. All right, here we are to discuss the budget. We have had a lot of staff discussions since our last work session on March 31st, I believe it was, and have made some changes, and we got to a balanced budget that I'm going to show you what the staff has done, and then it is up to y'all to let us know what you want to do and how you want to proceed. Maybe. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so this graph is on the left, that is, those are the numbers that I was showing you at our last work session. You can see that kind of coral color is expenditures, and the greenish color is revenues. So obviously we had a gap we were trying to fill. We've kind of taken expenses down and revenues up to get to a balanced budget with no plans for using fund balance. Revenues equal expenditures. This is just the breakdown by function. You can see that big 50, I think it's 51% slice is public safety, and then all the other functions, Public Works, Recreation, are smaller pieces, but this county spends a lot of money on public safety. That is where our focus has been. This is also a reminder from March 31st, showing last year we had an approved expenditure budget of $72 million, and estimated revenues were $69,831,000. So we had $2,255,600 that was budgeted use of fund balance. So that is eating into our reserves. And then we had 78 million that was requested for 2027 budget. This is where we are now, showing our starting point from 72 million, and these are all the things that have changed to get us to our balanced $76,250,107. The biggest changes in here are just over $1 million increasing overtime budgets to adjust for structural issues that we are currently having. The sheriff and jail and EMS are the two main departments that we're having issues where we have not budgeted enough to cover all the shifts that they're needing to work. Most public safety departments, the way that their shifts are set up, they have built-in overtime. That just means that if they work the regular schedule and nothing additional, they are going to get a certain amount of overtime. So this is trying to adjust that structure and get to a place where these departments can be more successful in staying within their overtime budget. The other biggest increases for just non-personnel things that were requested is again in the sheriff and jail. That's things like inmate medical. It's adjusting to manage their contract for body cameras and tasers and all sort. They have that all kind of grouped into one big contract. So making sure that we have the funds budgeted to cover all of that. There are some decreases. We are decreasing a little bit the amount that the county is putting into the health insurance fund, where last year we had to put a lot more money in. We're doing a little bit better, so we're trying to pull back just a little bit, but not too much, because we definitely don't want to underfund health insurance. Risk management, I just had to change that number because we just got our liability insurance premium and it's a 15% increase. That's something that we just have to pay for. Part of that increase is due to additional facilities and vehicles, but a lot of it is just due to high claims environments has just pushed up insurance costs. And then I've got $874,000 to implement the entire compensation plan as it was illustrated earlier. Let's see, I'm trying to think. You can see that I've changed the outside agency number. Was initially all that was requested was $743,294. I have adjusted that down to $286,109. That a lot of the agencies didn't request more than a 5% increase. I left that in there. Of course, the district attorney requested a 59% increase. I took that down to his smaller increase that was requesting to backfill the ARPA money. So those are the major changes. Gets us to 76 million. These are all the positions that were requested, and some reclassifications, some changes. It was a total of 1.8 million personnel costs. This is what is still in the budget, $100,788, which is going to cover just some minor reclassifications in a few different departments. We removed all the position additions with the exception of the public safety, or the solid waste. That's the word I'm looking for. The solid waste plan that was discussed earlier, that those numbers are mostly offsetting, so I didn't put it in this slide because it was just a separate issue, and that's if you want to approve that plan, it is included in here to change those positions and add the CI positions, remove the solid waste positions. But other than that, we are not adding any new positions in this proposed budget. This is a summary of the compensation plan. And the costs associated, obviously, the bulk of it is in the general fund. Also accountability court, airport, E911, and fire fund, because they all have employees. So they will all have some cost associated with that plan. This is the general fund revenues, separated out by different types of revenue. You've got what we had in the FY26 budget and what we're proposing for the FY27 budget. It is an increase in revenues of $6.4 million. You can see over $500,000 of that is charges for services, fines and forfeitures. That's money coming in from the court. That's based on trends. The charges for services are different things that whoever's using that service has to pay for. So that's increasing partly due to fees that are going up, but a lot due to fees that were increased for last budget year, but had been kind of raised at the end, so they weren't really considered. So that's trying to account for all of that. The biggest change here you can see is a reduction in property taxes and the addition of a sales tax. So I'm going to go over that in just a second, but this is how we were coming up with that $6.4 million to get us to a balanced budget with no deficit. So here's a little history. If you've been paying attention for the last year and a half, then you have heard of FLOST, the floating local option sales tax. It is also known as the PTR LOST. That's what the Georgia Department of Revenue calls it. So those are the exact same thing, a property tax relief local option sales tax. This came about from House Bill 581 that was approved, and it allowed a statewide floating homestead exemption that caps annual increases for property value assessments for primary residences that have a homestead exemption. They're capped at the rate of inflation, which is tied to the consumer price index. So when that passed, they gave local taxing authorities an opt-out. So you could opt out by March 1st, 2025 initially. We did not opt out. None of our cities opted out. So if, we made the decision, we wanted this. We wanted to give our taxpayers this exemption. And then along with that, House Bill 581 also allowed counties and cities to ask the voters to approve a sales tax that would offset the lost revenue from property taxes. So it'll reduce the homeowners' property taxes, but then allow a sales tax to put back that revenue. This is the FLOST. So we put that out on a referendum in November of 2025. It was approved by the voters, and collections on that sales tax began on January 1st, 2026. So initially, the law said that we would have to collect FLOST for an entire year. So starting January 1st, 2026, all the way through December 31st, 2026. And then we would be able to use those taxes to offset the 2027 tax levy. There was a recent amendment approved, and the governor signed it last week or 2 weeks ago, that says if we had a FLOST already in place and had collections before June 30th, 2026, we now must use those to offset our 2026 property taxes. So that's good news for us. We didn't think we were going to be able to use that until next year. But now we will be able to use the sales taxes that we've received between January and June to offset this year's property taxes. So that's where, based on our collections and how much we're getting, I'm estimating that the county will have about $6.4 million to reduce property taxes. So this is the calculation, and if you look at, if you take these slides and you compare this to the revenue slide I showed you a minute ago, these are not the exact same numbers because on that revenue slide, there is more included than just real property. These are just the real property numbers. And these are very, loose estimates, early estimates from the tax assessor's office, so don't bank on these exact numbers either. I'm just trying to illustrate how I got to the numbers from last year to this year. We have had about $2 million in real growth. That is new properties. That's a new business that opened up. That's new townhouses that weren't there that are now on the digest. And then calculating in order to be able to fund this budget in a balanced budget, we would not be able to roll back. Every year, of course, we have to calculate the rollback, which rolls back inflationary growth, which is just the, increased value of your house. So in order to afford this, we would not be able to roll back. We would have to stay, so that's about 1.7 if we stayed at the exact millage rate that we had last year of 11.35. I think we would need a slight increase of almost $1 million, but then we would be able to subtract out $6.4 million due to the FLOST, and that all gives us an overall decrease in real property taxes of about 1.7 million. So that's kind of the effects of the growth and the rollback and what that would do to our overall revenues. So the bottom line for this budget is we needed additional funding. We already started in a $2.2 million deficit from last year's budget, so we had to already make that up. The good news is we had $2 million in real growth in the digest that effectively makes that up. We had to address the overtime issues, or we're going to have departments that continue to go over their budget because they just can't structurally operate within the overtime budget that they had. We need to address the risk management and some other things that are requirements that we have to pay for whether we want to or not. And then we included the compensation plan, trying to keep our pay plan competitive and fair, and just to maintain current levels of service. Anything else, of course, I didn't add anything. This is not growth. This is not changing a lot. This is trying to do what we're doing just a little bit better. So if any new positions are desired by the board, that's a decision that y'all are going to have to make and direct the staff to add back in. This is, I showed you kind of the overall numbers of what the FLOSS does for the revenue amounts. This is what I'm estimating. Again, this is not the gospel on what the millage rate will be. This is just estimates based on early numbers from the tax assessor's office. They don't have the digest, they did not have the digest complete. So this is just estimates. So we started at 11.35, that was last year's millage rate. I'm estimating we would need to add 0.215 to give us a total millage rate of 11.565 in order to fund this budget. And then I'm calculating an estimated 1.511 rollback for FLOST, which would give us a potential millage rate of 10.054. So that is a decrease. So individual homeowners should see a lower property tax bill this year. And another thing to remember, this year is only based on the first 6 months. Next year, FLOST will have an entire year. So next year's decrease will be better than this year's. So that's what we're looking at. Again, these numbers are not exact. I'm not saying it'll be 2 months before we have those numbers out there of what the board, is looking at doing with the millage rate. This is just an estimate of what it would take to fund this budget. So that's the general fund. I wanted to talk just for a minute about the Fire District Fund. That's the other big property tax funded department that we have. The Fire District, they can maintain their current level of service at the same millage rate. They have 3 mills. But I know there's been talk about staffing that Stilson Fire Station, and the station's been renovated. EMS is operating there. If y'all want to put firemen in that station also, more funding is going to be needed. It takes 9 positions to be able to staff a fire truck. That's 3 on each shift with 3 shifts. It comes out to about $835,000. This is our tentative budget right now. Revenues of about $9 million and expenditures of about 9.6. That would include that $835,000 for the 9 additional firefighters. So we would need another $500,000 to be able to fund that. That's about $250,000 in the fire district. If you don't want to fund those additional positions, I can take them out and the fire fund should be fine for the year. So that's really up to y'all. I would just need direction on where you want to go with that. And that's my whole presentation. I also wanted to mention and get some feedback on timing, on when we need to hold a public hearing on the budget and when you want to approve it. My current thought process, I will not be available the first meeting in June. So my current thought process is maybe we hold the public hearing the second week in June, like June 9th maybe, and that would allow you to be able to approve the budget at the second meeting in June. But that's all, open for discussion. Any questions, comments?
Is this information on our commissioner's phone that you just presented to?
This slideshow is not yet, but I will send it to you after the meeting.
I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you and your staff have done.
Of course.
So just to be clear, we can maintain what we got right now, but if there's add a position, it's gonna be a millage increase.
Yes.
If it's for the sheriff or fire department, Stilson, whatever they call it, Eldora Fire Department, or, so if anybody, I know that in the past, like the sheriff department, they were, and several, I don't know, I wasn't in the fire department, but several of them had to project a 5-year projection of how many employees they were gonna add. Because we're just this being a note, I won't be sitting up here, so it won't bother me, but, you got a jail you building out there that is, you can either put them on either 3 or 4 or 5 at the time like projected, or you can put them on 25 or 30 at the time. So, I just want everybody to understand, if it takes a little millage increase to put a few people on for the fire department and for the public safety, EMS or whatever it needs to be, you can kick it down the road a time or two, but then instead of having a quarter, $500,000 increase, you're gonna have a $3 million like the school board had. So that is inevitable. You got a $60 million jail you're building out there, and ain't counting Bryan and Ben Tapley's. So they can either stop what they're doing right now, the ISO rates can remain like they are now, and I just want to make that clear to everybody. So if you want a fire department or EMS and all that to continue down in the southeast, biggest part of growing of this county, you need to take that in consideration. And if you don't want to staff them, then, hey, I guess you'll have to tell your constituents why you didn't after you said you was going to.
Pull up the calendar here. Yeah, comment away.
Yeah, I was looking at maybe June, I think June 9th is the Tuesday, maybe if we held a public hearing that night and then approve the budget at the regular meeting on June the 16th, unless anybody has a better idea. We would not be able to hold a public hearing next week because we don't have time to advertise it properly. So I don't think we could really hold one sooner than June 9th. Unless you don't need me to be there.
Could we do the public hearing on the 16th? That's the day that we have our regularly scheduled meeting.
Mm-hmm. And then we'd have to have a called meeting to approve the budget.
Correct.
We could do that. Do you want to do the public hearing at the morning meeting or have a public hearing in the evening?
No, I want to have it in the evening.
Okay.
Gentlemen, what would y'all like to do? Let's do the easy stuff first. When are we going to do the budget hearing and the budget approval?
It's the 9th and the 16th, right?
So 9th and the 16th, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Do
that's
the
fine.
budget hearing on the 9th
Okay.
that evening, and then we can approve on the 16th.
It's fine with me.
Any comments about the budget?
Just need more time to look at it. It's hard to make a decision when you got it like 5 minutes ago. I don't have a hard copy in front of me either.
I know I've asked this before, but insurance tax funds,
Mm-hmm.
can we use that, any portion of it, for fire?
If we do, then you're gonna have to backfill the general fund where it is currently going.
Okay.
And I know Jeff would caution you that our insurance premium taxes must be used for only services that benefit the unincorporated citizens, because all the cities also get insurance premium tax. So any resident of any city is getting benefit from their city's insurance premium tax. And the fire department covers the cities of Brooklet, Portal, Register. So that makes it complicated. Am I saying that correctly, Jeff?
Yes, yes, it has to be used for services primarily provided for the benefit of the unincorporated residents. They also passed a bill this year that now 1.5% of it's going to have to go to the peace officers' annuity and benefit fund, so we'll have to make up for that as well, I guess. Christie, I don't know.
Yeah, I already took that. It's included in my calculation.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
is there any money from GEMA and FEMA reimbursement that's not accounted for in your calculation?
There is, yes, there is, and the reason that I did that way is because it is not good fiscal planning to count on one-time revenues to cover recurring expenditures. So yes, we will have, we've got a few $million still out there, according to Mr. Kemp. I just received $2 million last week. So yes, there is FEMA money. That's good. That means we're not in a dire cash position. But we can't.
But you won't have that money all the time.
Right. So
No.
my preference would be to look at using the FEMA money, whatever's available, to cover things like capital projects, to use one-time revenues to pay for one-time expenses. But if we budget for, payroll based on a one-time revenue, then we just set ourselves up for a problem next year when that money's not there.
That's almost like having a grant.
Mm-hmm.
Get a grant, start a project,
Mm-hmm.
just say, keep using that. Yeah.
So in summary, what we're looking at right now is, our current millage rate is 11.35. If we go with what you've recommended right there, we're looking at a projected millage rate of about 10.1. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's if we don't hire anybody.
Don't hire anybody, leave it just like it is.
Yes. Yes, and the position requests are going to come back next year, so.
That's right.
That's always a consideration. The public safety is always going to have requests, but the other departments too that have requested positions are needed. A lot of the smaller departments, they don't request a position every year. They don't request them very often. They try to do without. I know there's several of them that could really use help, and because their jobs aren't glamorous, they're not usually the focus, but they're still important. But again, I don't know how y'all want to handle that. So I was directed to come up with a balanced budget, so that's what I've done. And then anything beyond that, we need to figure out.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you need action on this executive session stuff when we get done?
Yeah, you can just close, if you're doing discussion, just close it, no motion, but we do need a motion there.
But we're gonna have action after this, so we're gonna come back into session.
That's totally up to you.
Okay, all right. So that concludes our work session for this afternoon, or this morning, excuse me. And we're going to move into executive session. I must now call for a motion to adjourn into executive session in accordance with the provisions of OCGA 50-14-3B2 and other applicable laws pursuant to the advice of the County Attorney Jeff Akins for the purpose of discussing personnel. Once we're done, we'll adjourn back into here just to adjourn the meeting. There will be no action taken. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Mr. Rushing and a second from Mr. Connor. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously to move